Great. So now that you know a little bit about best practice and about world class, we're going to be moving you into how do we actually implement best practice. Okay, so current practices in relation to best practices. Firstly, we need to identify and replace poor practices. So if we know that things aren't working, well, then change them as quickly as you can. Then raise the performance of poor performers closer to that of the best. Okay, so we're going to take a look at all the things that we're not doing well. What do other companies, what do other industries do that actually works, and how do we move towards that? Then we avoid reinventing the wheel. So we're not going to try and develop our own strategy. We see what works, and then we start to bring that into our processes. Um, we're going to save costs. So if we move towards better practices, we're going to have better productivity and efficiency. And then we improve our service to clients. Now, if we do that, we're going to start to see real significant changes in our profits. We're going to see some changes in our organizations because we are becoming better at what we are doing. Right, next slide. Okay, so here we go. We've got to look at our current practices. So what do we do? Okay, this is how we do things. Well, we're currently using a photocopier to photocopy things, but maybe we should be scanning it. So let's take a look at the understanding of best practice. Everyone else is scanning things in, and only when they need it do they actually copy it. So there's going to be an improvement. There's going to be a cut in the amount of paper. There's going to be a cut in the amount of time that we have to collate those pieces of paper. So what we are doing is we're moving towards best practices. So over here, best practice. Okay, so we're going to be looking at scanning versus printing. Best practice strategies. Well, the company down the road, all they do is they scan in all their documents. All right. Now over here, how does our current practice? Well, currently we print all of our papers and then we put them in files. What is the barrier to best practice implementation? Well, if you don't have a scanner, well, there's a problem. If you don't have people that know how to scan, well, there's a problem. If you don't have space to scan on, that could be a problem. So what are the barriers to being able to implement best practice? And then should you implement the best practice? Well, yes, if we got the skills, if we have the resources, let's do it. It's going to save us time, it's going to save us money, and it's going to make us more efficient. And we'll be able to find things that we used to lose when we printed them. So those are the things that we are going to do. Okay, so it's important then to analyze what we do now, why we should do it better, and how we can do it better. Okay, so where to implement? You can do it in quality management, stock control, supply chain, purchasing and ordering processes, information management, product distribution, customer services, human resources management, packaging design and processing, marketing, public relations, administrative processes, and staff training technology use. Okay, so in other words, you are using a new best practice. We used to do face to face. Now we've had to adapt and change. And currently, you are watching this either on your TV or laptop or cell phone. You've embraced technology. We are part of a best practice, and we're going to see how it works. Okay, let's go to the next one. Where do you look for best practices? So you're saying, hey, but I don't know what is best practice and how we can use best practice. Well, look at a couple of places. Firstly, direct competitors. Who are your competitors? Take a look at what they are doing. And if you are lagging behind, start to make some changes. Okay, so you've got to look at it. So if McDonald's has a drive through and Nando's doesn't have a drive through, maybe Nando's needs to go, hey, we need to change to best practice. Otherwise, look at similar companies. Okay, so they might not provide the exact same thing that you do, but they are doing similar practices. Let's take a look at what they are doing, and maybe we should follow the way that they do things. Then indirect competitors. So, in other words, they do a similar thing, but they're not a competitor within the organization. So, let's look at the way that they do things. So, this is something like KFC versus Edgar's. Okay, so Edgar's might be doing something, and KFC, they're not competitors, but Edgar's is doing something that KFC can take a look at. And then other successful institutions. Okay, so let's take a look at how Google are doing things. Let's take a look at how Facebook are doing things. Let's see how Apple is doing things. They're not a competitor. They're not in our country, but goodness, they do some things very well. So let's take a look at the way that they do things. So we take a look at who is a successful institution. Then why should we move towards best practice? Well, again, good customer service. If we are meeting the needs of our customer, then we should be changing. In terms of performance, it should make us do things quicker, cheaper, more effectively. Quality, we should be getting quality things out. So we should have a better quality, a better amount of things that are going right. Okay. But before we make those changes, we need to make an impact analysis. So before we go to best practice, we need to say, okay, so what is this going to affect? Does it affect our people? Does it affect our infrastructure? Does it affect our venue? Does it affect the stakeholders? Does it affect our finances? Before we can make any kind of changes, we need to know what is it going to change and how badly is it going to change it. Maybe people need new skills. Maybe we need new assets and resources. So we need to do an impact study before we even start on the process of best practice. Now we're going to be looking at a task. So your first one is formative assessment 2.2. Okay, so you can go to that page. Then you're going to read the question. Consider current practices in your workplace. Discuss whether these current practices meet the requirements and expectations of your customers. Okay, so let's take a look at what you do and is it helping your customer? Okay, so if it's not helping your customer, then you got to start to change things. What do you do constantly? What are your processes? What are your routines? And are they actually serving your client? If they're not serving your client, change them. So, are they good? What are your current practices? Are they good? Are they the best? Are they world class? Are they best practice? If not, where do you need to improve? Okay, so tell me about that. Tell me about your current practices. Are they good? Do they need to improve? You guys have your discussion as a group and you write down some notes, and right at the end of that, you're going to score yourself like you always do with the formatives. All right, then we're going to be moving to summatives. So you're going to fill in a little table, okay? So you're going to compare current practices, you're going to evaluate current products, list any barriers to implementation, and consider if the best practice will be implemented, and identify which of these best practices will give you the maximum gain. Okay, so you're going to tell me about what is the best practice. Okay, so let's say we don't have normal written guides, training guides. We're going to have electronic guides. What is the current practice? Well, we have printed out guides. Does the current practice meet the internal customer expectations? So, who are your customers? You've got to take a look at it. Um, if you succeed in this, you are obviously going to be looking after your customer. If you are found compliant, if you found competent, you're obviously going to help your customer. So ultimately, if it doesn't suit you, it's not going to suit the customer. What are the barriers to best practice? Well, we don't have the facilities. It's difficult because our devices are small. What's going to be a problem if we turn all of our written stuff into digital stuff? Okay. Now, should we implement best practice? Yes or no? Well, if you think it's good that we should move all of our reference material online or onto your cell phone, then that's best practice. If you don't think it's a good idea, then you say no. Why not? Well, because it's not effective. It's not going to help our customer. So you look at best practice, current practice. Does it help your customer? What are the barriers to implementation? And should you implement it or not? All right. Then you take a look at all the best practices versus the current practices. From that list, what is the best opportunity to make maximum gain for your business? So let's say, you know what, instead of actually printing out our POEs, when we complete it, we're going to scan it and we're going to send it to the assessors. If he needs remedial done, we'll go to our scans and we'll be able to pull out what the problems are. That's going to save us paper. It's going to save us time. It's going to save us any kind of problems because we can now find the problems on our portfolios of evidences. So that's going to be your best practice from now on. Then you've got to motivate that change. Okay, so that's going to be the next section. So I want you to do your formative. Okay, so that's your formative. And then once you've done that, you're going to do your summative. Okay, so there's your summative. If you need examples, if you get stuck in your thinking, remember you've got the WhatsApp group, you've got Colin, you've got myself, you've got all of your team members. We're all there to help you. So please put your questions into that group, and then we'll try and unstuck you as you go through that. Okay, so remember, what are the best practices, what are our current practices, and how which is the best practice that we should be focusing on. All right, good luck. Give yourselves half an hour for that section, and then come back for the next video.